Some definitions that we wanted to clarify before we dive into our data was first off, what is a successful play? And we defined it as a gain of 40% of yards needed on first down, 60% of yards on second down, and 100% of yards needed on third and fourth down. And cover two is defined as a coverage type tagged as cover two or man cover two. And run pass situation types are defined as down and distances where the run pass rate is greater than 65%. So, as seen in the bullets below, in 2025, that was when it was first and 1 to 5, second and 1 to 3, and third and 1 to 2. And pass situations were first and 11 plus, second and 8 plus, and third and 3 plus. So, with this in mind, we can look how cover two usage changes throughout these situations.
All right, so getting into part one, we're going to go and look at league-wide trends for the defenses. So just overall, cover two usage is used at a 17% rate across all dropbacks, seeing an increase to 20% on third downs, and the third down run pass split is 22 to 78%.
Yeah, so these two graphs kind of show the score differential and then the percentage of cover two plays run in each bin essentially. And so we see that in between down 0 and down 7, that teams run cover two the most. And then when it's a little bit of a larger lead or a larger deficit, teams don't necessarily run cover two. Maybe they're trying to blitz more or just not trying to uh, give up a larger lead. And then this graph on the right, it shows like the distance from the opponent end zone. So where drives usually start is between 60 and 80 yards to the end zone. Teams use cover two the most. That's probably mostly due to like the defense doesn't want to give up a huge play, and they have a lot of room to work with on the field, especially when the team is starting out on the drive.
So going back now into more situational usage, talking about run and pass situations, you can see that cover two is used a lot more during pass situations across all downs, and that is exemplified a lot more on third down, which is, as people know, third down is passing down. And on third down pass situations, cover two usage is the highest. So jumping back over to score differential, when you group by quarter, there's not really a difference between cover two usage. But when you look at situations where the defense is either leading or trailing, the cover two rate actually differs. And again, that ties back into the run rate where when the defense is trailing, the run rate goes up, as you could see here in the fourth quarter plots. So trailing is when the defense is behind, the offense is going to run a lot more. And then even more extreme is when the defense is leading, they're going to see the pass rate go up a lot. And then as you can see here on the plot on the right, that when the defense is leading, their cover two usage goes up, which directly correlates with the fact that they're going to see a lot more pass plays while they're leading. So to look at which teams are using cover two the most, we wanted to try to explore who is using it in situations that not everybody else was doing it in. So what we did was group by down, distance, and field position, and we looked at the averages in those situations and then compared it to if teams were actually using cover two when they were supposed to. And we kind of found this model from a Sumer Sports article about coaching decisions and game models. And so what we found here is that teams who are using cover two a lot are also using it more in it than expected, which makes sense because if you're going to use cover two a lot, you're also going to use it more than the average team. So it's showing that teams are going to stick to their guns, and if they like to use cover two, they're going to use cover two. And in terms of effectiveness now, there's a little bit more here. It kind of shows that up here in this top right corner, you have defenses who are just generally poor defenses. They're bad with cover two and other coverage types. And it's kind of interesting if you look in the bottom right sector, there's not teams who are really good at other coverages, but who struggle with cover two. The only main outlier here would be the Carolina Panthers, who are a really elite cover two team, but struggle in all other areas. So now getting into part two, the question is, what is an offense supposed to do against the cover two boogeyman? So looking at that, this is the usage over expected against an offense. And pretty much the same trend emerges where Cincinnati is absurdly high, and then you have the rest of the teams fall into the line where it just comes down to if teams want to use cover two, they're going to use it. There's not really situations where they're going to get interesting with it. There's not an outlier there. Now, in terms of effectiveness, it's also a similar trend where you see that in the bottom left now, the poor offenses being like Cleveland and Tennessee, they're struggling against cover two and other coverages. And then in the opposite, in the top right, you have New England and San Francisco, who are just generally elite. And in the bottom right and top left, there aren't major outlier teams who are struggling against only cover two or only other coverage types.
Another thing to note, if you go back to the last slide, we merged NFL Fast Star data with the data that you guys provided us, and so that's how we were able to get like a lot of the logos, or not the logos, but other variables that we used in our analysis. So then looking at these two plots, the one on the left here is showing the receiver alignment, so the offensive formation, and essentially the average EPA for each formation. So we can see like all tight was not very good against cover two, while bunch right was, the most effective. And so it's kind of just showing that like more like the goal line packages aren't very good against cover two, obviously, and like um, more spread out formations are better. And then so this graph on the right essentially shows the route type, just in general, and then the average GPA for that, or EPA for that, and then as you can see, like the post route is by far the highest EPA yielding route.
So then the question becomes, as we stated earlier, if it comes down to run pass rate, why is run so important? And so the data doesn't exactly provide coverage data for run plays, but using the fact that 75% of cover two plays start with two high safeties, we can model that with run plays starting against two high safeties. And you can see here that the success rate with two high safeties and the EPA are both the highest when the offense is running. So this is why cover two is so afraid of the run. So then the next question becomes, okay, if you've found a concept that works really well, say post, vertical, route, why don't you run it all the time? And so the approach we took was looking at the Nash equilibrium, which is essentially you can't change your decision without the other person changing their decision and therefore making your outcome worse. And so because cover two is most influential in passing situations, that's where we're going to focus. And so if we look at the breakdown here, the offense should run a cover two beater 57% of the time to try to account for the fact that defense really wants to get into cover two in a passing situation. So at that 57% mark, that's where the offense is going to maximize their EPA per play, assuming that the defense is going to act rationally and try to counteract what they're going to do.
So here we have some heat maps that just show the uh, target share and then the EPA. And for this, I used NFL Fast Start data. It has basically the third of the field to which it was thrown, and then I also used average depth of target. And this just shows on the right in the blue chart basically where the highest EPA area to target is, and then you can see that the two highest EPA areas in the middle are actually not targeted that frequently. The two most common are going to be the left and right within 10 yards. And this is for cover two man. And then on the next slide, we have cover two zone. And so this one's actually pretty different, not in terms of target share location, it's actually pretty similar. But we can see that now the optimal EPA target area is going to be the uh, deep middle quadrant. And that makes sense when you think about it, because in cover two, you're going to have like two high safeties. You have to basically defend from the middle of the field all the way to the goal line. So a lot of seam plays in those two darkest blue areas are going to be where targeting cover two is going to be most effective in terms of BPA.
All right, so moving into part three, we're going to be talking about our situational game plan. So we chose the New England Patriots to go up against the Minnesota Vikings. Essentially, what these two charts are saying that is for the New England offense, they are more effective when going against cover two, and then um, the Minnesota defense is less effective, according to our analysis, when in cover two because their success rate is higher, because the offense is converting more first downs, essentially. Yeah. And so basically, Minnesota wants to run like a base defense because most of their box players are between 6 to 7, and that's a lot of base, and they want to just match one-on-one. Essentially, what this is saying is that as the number of safeties increases, that um, the the success rate of passes increases. Um, Essentially, it's kind of the same thing showing with the Patriots offensive success rate with that too.
Yeah, I can jump in here too. It's what we're really trying to say here is that when Minnesota is going into that too high pre-snap look, New England does they do not as well against the run compared to against the pass, and then that's a direct mismatch with New England, where you can see that New England does really well running the ball in a pre-snap too high safety look.
All right, so I created this play visualization model. Basically uses the data that we were given and some of the fast start data. I estimated time to throw using regression analysis, and I was able to get the average time to throw for a quarterback every week just from next gen stats. It's like an attachment to FastStar, and basically ran a regression trying to estimate the time to throw based on like whether there's pressure on the play, the depth of target, type of route targeted, all that kind of thing, or all those kind of elements. And it works pretty well. You can see in these videos that I attached just some plays where the model works pretty well. Um, and this is just to visualize plays. I think we probably don't have enough time to show the videos, but if you guys want to check those out later, you can. Um,
Yeah, so this graph kind of shows what we've already been kind of saying is that the Vikings are very vulnerable in the deep middle part of the field on cover two. So these red dotted lines are the league averages based off of the pass location. So they're way better than the league average when defending passes to the left and to the right, and then they're way above uh, the league average, meaning that they allow more EPA when teams target the middle of the field. And so this kind of says the same thing, just as air yards charted against EPA. And so with the Vikings table too, you can see like there's more yards that they allow, and essentially the completion percentage is pretty high amongst all of them because all of the yellow dots on the chart. And it just kind of shows the same thing with the left and right that they don't that they're pretty good against the pass to the left and the right. And then now looking at New England's offense, they as we can see, they don't necessarily target the deep ball that much. And so that would be an advantage against cover two as well because Minnesota is vulnerable to the deep ball, so they be expecting might not be expecting shorter plays. And so this chart kind of looks at every route and labels it by the position group so that each receiver is labeled. And essentially what we see is that New England is very, very successful on crossing routes and hook routes and vertical routes on cover two. And so the completion percentage is these green outlines on each dot. And so New England completes a lot of their passes. Obviously, we know that Drake May had a very good year, And so we can also see this is a weakness for Minnesota's defense because they allow a high EPA, almost 5 actually, um, on the crossing routes. And so that would be a really good thing for New England to do to try and beat this Minnesota defense on cover two. Similarly, what we've also been talking about with the post route is that Minnesota allows a lot of EPA on their post routes defended. And so I just think that this graph is helpful in showing that uh, New England's strengths are Minnesota's weaknesses. And so this kind of summarizes that. Um, Obviously, we've been talking about the run game. We want to run the ball against cover two because it's a safe play and it has a lot of EPA on average. And then, as I said before, Minnesota gives up a lot of big plays over the middle, and then crossers and post routes are most effective. And then also, the screen game is not very effective in cover two. Um, if we go back to the last chart, we can see that there the EPA was in the negatives, or it wasn't very high. So yeah.
All right, so yeah, so using our model, just for the play visualization, you can see this is the basically the optimal cover pass play against cover two zone that we designed. So basically, it kind of looks like your traditional seam play, where the safety on the top left is going to basically have to pick between, which the vertical that he covers, and so yeah, and it's also going to be targeting like just inside the middle of the field. And so we chose this by choosing the basically the route that's associated with the or that has the highest EPA mean on like against a specific coverage. So you can see that that was the L2 vertical. And then I looked to see what on plays where an L2 vertical is targeted, which other routes are associated with the highest EPA, and basically picked those. And then in that way, we basically calculate the optimal play, and then also picked the defense that is most commonly ran against this type of like personnel that's most commonly ran against this type of offensive personnel. So that's going to be basically nickel with six in the box. And then so we have the cover two man play here. This one is going to be basically like a mesh concept. Use the exact same method as before. And this makes sense considering what we talked about before, where we said that like spread formations and trips left specifically were like really good against cover two, specifically man. And then the cross route targeted could be targeted deeper or shorter depending on play design, but yeah, so basically the exact same method, but the cover two man had a much lower sample just because it's ran less. So that's something to consider as well.
Just to add on, just to add on to John here, both these plays we wanted to target the middle of the field, and this cover man play, like obviously these corners were just it's a mesh concept, like John said, so we're just trying to create natural separation over the middle of the field, through like picks and etc. And we tried emphasizing routes that Minnesota struggled versus, as Jake was saying earlier, and the middle of the field was their biggest weak point. So that's what we were trying to accomplish with these plays.
All right, that's our presentation tour. If you guys have any questions, we're ready for those.
Yeah, great job, guys. Really like the depth of analysis that you guys did, and specifically like that you brought in the NFL faster stuff. But I'm curious how exactly you brought or like merged that data in, given there wasn't a specific play ID, I believe, in the Sports Info Solutions uh, data set, and if you found any big matching errors within that.
Yeah, so so the new way that NFL Fast Start labeled each play or each game at least was that they have essentially the year or the season, the home team and then the away team. And essentially I created that variable on this data set. And then from there, I matched, the quarter, the down, the distance, more identifiers like that. And yeah, time remaining as well, just so that we can get as accurate as possible a match on the data. And it wasn't perfect. There's still a few that were missing, but we took those out when we did our analysis.
No specific questions for me, but I guess yeah, just a point of advice. The more you work with data and that kind of thing, Jake, as you probably saw, it's a lot of it's the 75 to 80% of data cleaning and joining and doing all that fun stuff. I'm sure you probably spent more time messing with that than a lot of the analysis itself. So just a word of advice to all you guys. But yeah, great job. Overall, really good in-depth analysis here. Yeah, overall, it's good stuff.
Thank you.